Hi, and in this quick video I'm going to go over some melee DPS specific advice for the first boss in Emerald Nightmare, Nythendra. This will cover heroic mode only for now. For those interested in Retribution Paladin specific advice, that will be coming out at the end of this series. Hopefully I won't be keeping you longer than a few weeks on that. First of all, an overview of the boss from a DPS point of view. There are two phases. In the first phase, your only concerns are to maximise DPS on the boss, to ensure that if you get rot, that you drop the pool, called Infested Ground, in the correct place, and to avoid the Infested Breath. In the second phase, boss DPS takes second place to bug watching. The pools left by rot will start to converge on the boss, and you'll want to avoid these. How difficult this is depends on how coordinated your raid group is. Ideally, you'll have placed the rot pools well, and there's almost no need to have to watch out for them. The greatest danger in this phase are the bugs, which sometimes grow much larger versions and deal massive amounts of AoE damage. When it comes to the two key mechanics in the first phase, the rot and the breath, placement is everything. There are different strategies possible when placing the rot pool, but the most important thing is that you ensure you know where it should be dropped. You should also bear in mind that the player who gets the rot debuff will deal AoE to those around them. This is a melee unfriendly mechanic, which means that you'll want to spread out as much as possible from each other. Naturally, this becomes easier with fewer melee, hence the melee unfriendly tag for this boss. Once you've dropped your rot pool, use a movement speed boost if available to get yourself back into melee range as soon as possible to resume attacking the boss. With mechanics such as this, it's not uncommon for people to carry on damaging the boss for a bit, which is usually okay as long as you correctly judge the time needed to move out. However, in the case of rot, it's not a simple countdown after that, because you are dealing AoE damage to those around you. The breath is, generally speaking, directed at a random player. This is why placement is important. You are trying to keep a large portion of the room clear from the infested ground, and the only way to do that is to not be in the intended clear zone of the room when infested breath is about to be cast. Every time the boss casts the infested breath, it costs energy. When this is depleted after 2 breaths, they fall to the ground and the heart of the swarm phase begins. At this point you should hopefully have a clear segment of the room to stand in where there are no infested ground pools. If not, then it's time to start dodging. The main event, however, are the bugs around the room. While small, they pose no danger, but some will periodically grow large and deal 3 pulses of AoE damage called Burst of Corruption. There are a few concerns for melee specifically here, but of course it's a concern for everyone. The first is that a segment of the room will obviously have less space near the centre, where the boss is, than further out in the ranged area. This means that you have less space to move safely unless you want to deal with the rot pools as well. The second is that the bugs sometimes enlarge under part of the boss and so are more difficult to see. Finally, the range of Burst of Corruption is actually larger than you might think. A few steps away from the giant insect or maggot won't be of much use. You need to move much further away. Don't just race away though and run into a completely different bug doing its burst though, or the effect will be just as unpleasant and rather more embarrassing. There really is nothing for it in this phase, but to keep scanning around you at all times from the bugs suddenly enlarging. Pay particular attention to the angle of your camera and how far out you have it zoomed. If it's too far out, then you may have a difficult time seeing them. Too far in, however, and you'll have a harder job seeing where it's safe to run to when they do appear. Remember that they can just as easily appear behind you in range, so look all around your character. Burst of Corruption does very high damage and is simply not the sort of thing that you can just put up with and leave it to the healers. Once the boss regains her energy, the first phase begins again. In terms of when to use DPS cooldowns, it will depend largely on your spec and how long the fight is expected to last. However, unless it means missing out on a full application, I'd personally try and avoid using them during the heart of the swarm phase. The problem with using them here is that your DPS is very likely to drop off because of the bug dodging. And also, you are less likely to dodge the bugs well because there's nothing to get a DPS player tunneling like having their cooldowns in use. Of course, if, like I said, you'd miss out on an entire application of the cooldown by delaying it, such as a short duration cooldown like Frost Death Knight's Pillar of Frost, then of course you should use it and just try to be disciplined. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share. And of course, if you've got specific questions, put them in the comments below. Either myself or someone else may well get back to you. And until next time, I'll see you later.